Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In my prior video, I have started discussing about the reconciliation and I have given you the basic breaks what we see generally during the cash reconciliation. So cash reconciliation is actually takes a lot of time and it take needs lot of research to go ahead and do it. Today's video, I am going to cover the other kind of reconciliations. So after cash, which is the major important thing comes, obviously is the position reconciliation. So cash is where you are checking your cash bucket. Position is for the holding. So let's say particular fund have a holding of a multiple securities and bonds and futures and all those instruments. So you are going to reconcile the position between custody and a fund accounting, and also or between custody, fund accounting and IMREC, or fund accounting and IMREC. So all the cases the treatment going to be same. So what are the generally common kind of position breaks we see during doing the position reconciliation? So one which is very common is trade break. So sometime there can be a possibility that the trade is booked by fund accountant, but it is not booked by custody. So there can be a situation that custody missed to book it. There can be a situation that custody has got a instruction cancellation instruction for a trade which fund accountant has not received. So in those cases, whenever there is a trade break, there can be a trade break will always have the two-sided impact. So you will see a cash impact also there, and you will have a position impact also. Let's say you miss the same thing to see it in the cash, but you can see it in the position break. Tell me how you can see it. Okay, I know in YouTube you cannot answer me, but generally, let's say if it is a T plus 2 settlement date break, so in that case what happens is you book a trade on the T date, and suppose let's say you book a trade and custody also got the instruction, but they got a cancellation instruction, so that's why they removed the trade. But as a fund accountant you didn't got the cancellation instruction, so in that case you will book the trade and you will have the share difference between custody. But on the cash rec you cannot see it because the cash is going to settle after T plus 2 date. So that is why in the position break you can more earlier you can see this break. Also sometime it can so happen that you have booked a trade duplicate. Sometime I have also seen sometime IM will send 2 3 4 instruction. Let's say they have sent an instruction twice and custody had booked it once and you by mistake booked it twice as well, but it was the same instruction. So in that case you can have a duplicate trade, so that also can be checked in this position break because your number of shares is going to be double, or your number of shares going to be little extra than what is the instruction sent. So in those cases this can be one of the position break which you need to reconcile. Second will be corporate action breaks. So what happens in this case is suppose there is any spin-off or there is any merger or there is any rights. Sometime what happens is especially for the rights, there can be a thing like FA has booked a separate dummy security which custody's treatment is different and they are not going to show it in that way. Sometimes custody can show it in one of the dummy line which is like in fund accounting they are not showing it in that way. So in those cases you can have a break. Sometimes it can be justified, sometimes the that need to be corrected. So all these things as a fund accountant you need to go ahead and do the research, and then you have to come to a conclusion. Third kind of position break is asset line difference. So this is not a ideal break, but it do sometime comes. Let's say the asset in which line it is set up in fund accountant, the same asset is not set up in same line in the custody side. If that happen, and if it is only applicable for a internal custody cases, so if that happens, then what happens is, let's say the trades and everything for a particular security, it is booked in one particular asset line in custody side, and in fund accounting side you are booking it in a different asset line. So that is going to create a break for you because both lines are not same. But ideally what happens when the initially only when you are starting a fund, you need to always match what is my security setup and whether it is in line with custody or not. So that is one of the basic things we do when any new security comes into the fund. But still let's say there is any justifiable reason why the custody is holding in a different line, because there can be multiple things can happen into a fund or into a system. So if that happens, so there can be a asset line difference also due to the position. In those cases we need to comment it correctly that okay, custody is having different asset line than fund accountant. And sometime we will raise a query, sometime we will ask the custody team to correct the asset line, sometime we will correct the our holding or our asset line. Till the time it happens we will be having a break, so accordingly you need to comment it. Also, another time what we see is a future position break. So sometime futures, generally what happens, there will be a broker statement you will be getting for your future and options and all those trades. So let's say you have not booked it correctly and custody have booked it. Sometime it can so happen like for the trades what I was telling, sometime it happens like custody side they got the broker instruction and you didn't know it, so you didn't book it. Once custody book it, you get to know, and then you ask for the broker statement, and then you got to know and you book. And there can be another scenario. So see, this is also very team specific, company specific, and the process specific work. So there are ideal scenario is that the IM or the investment manager will send all the instruction to both the parties, to fund accounting and fund accounting and custody, and that is where we do the three-way reconciliation. I will do the reconciliation with IM instructions what they're sending, and also I will check my custody records also. Sometime it can so happen that the IM will say that I will only send the instruction to one party, I will send it to custody, you go ahead and just match everything whatever custody is saying. So if custody books it, I will book it, if custody cancel it, I will cancel it. So that can also happen. So that depends on how the process is. So it future prediction break, that can happen that you might miss to book the instruction previously custody have already shown, and that day maybe you missed to book it, you didn't check your position break, and after one day you saw it, and then you see there is a future position break. That can also happen. Sometime you already finished the fund and you signed off the fund, and maybe in the late custody has processed any trade, and then you get to know. Or sometime it can happen there is a late instruction came, so on the custody side they don't have a deadline, they will book when the instruction come. But from a fund accounting side, as we are circulating the NAV, we are releasing the NAV, we will be having a cutoff. So after that we might not book a late instruction, and maybe on the next day we will be booking it. So those things also you need to comment correctly. So these are the common position breaks. And there can be, as a fund accounting you are, you can might find many more scenarios where you can see different kinds of position break. If there is anything you are getting and you are like having a doubt, you can definitely ask me in the comment section, I will be happy to help you regarding this. Next we will be talking about another one kind of reconciliation. What we do is the income reconciliation. So income reconciliation we do actually on the accrual level. Why? Because when it is from the accrual, if it is moving to the payment, it will go into the cash bucket. So any break that in that position will be coming into your cash reconciliation. But income reconciliation, what we are doing is in at the stage of accrual only, when it is in the receivable bucket. So suppose a company has already declared a dividend, and I know I am going to get it on the after 15 days or after 3 months. So I am already creating a accrual bucket and I am putting it as a receivable. Custody will also do the same. Why I am doing a reconciliation at that level? So that I can avoid getting a cash break. So what are the common kind of like reconciliation breaks we see during in the income reconciliation? First we can see that the income is not at all there in the custody side, and it is there in the our side. So it will be an income break. So I have a accrual, custody doesn't have a accrual. Then I'm going ahead and ask them why they are not accruing it. Okay. Second, very common is X date trade income break. So I have created a separate video on dividend important dates. There you can see that what are the important dates for dividend, and if on a particular date you have a trade, whether you are eligible for the dividend or not. So let's say there is a trade on a X date. So if there is a trade on a X date, you will be eligible for the dividend. Okay. But custody sometimes what they do, they don't take the before the trade happen how much shares, and on that they will not calculate the dividend. They will take after the trade whatever happened, and that way they will be taking the dividend amount. So then there will be a difference. for the shares whichever is having the trade. So then you will have an income break. So on those cases you need to go ahead and chase custody. Sometime what happen, they will have the accrual break, but on the payment they will get the full amount. Then they will then your cash will match. So that again depends on the practice how you are going to do, but you need to keep it in mind. So as an accountant, it is your responsibility about the fund, and you should know in and out about the fund. So you should be knowing, okay, for my security A, know there is a income break because there is a XT trade. So all these things you should know. So you will be careful on the payment date. You need to see whether custody got the full amount or custody got the half amount. If custody has not received the full amount, you need to go ahead and tell custody that if we are supposed to get this much amount, let's say we are supposed to get $100 for this dividend, but you have received only 85. So please check on this, we are supposed to get it. So these are the responsibility of a fund accountant. Third important thing what we see is withholding tax break. So what happens here is sometime we will be like all the dividends will have a tax amount. Sometime we will be accounting for the withholding tax, but dividend custody is not accounting for the withholding tax. Sometime it can be vice versa. So in those cases, we need to go and check whether the dividend was taxable or not. If the dividend was taxable, and if there is, you can check in any external sources, that any third party vendor, whether this dividend was associated with a tax or not. If it is associated with a tax, then you need to go ahead and book the tax on your end. And if it is not associated with tax, still custody is showing it in a tax, then you need to go ahead and check with the custody team why they are doing it. They can have a justification that okay, we got an instruction and it is supposed to be having a tax. Then based on that documentation, you need to talk to your reviewer, you need to talk to your senior, and then you need to go ahead and take an action on this. Okay, so these are the common kind of breaks we see in the income rate. And there can be another fourth, one last point which I remember, is cancel dividend. So sometime we will be having a accrual, and custody is also having an accrual. I see this is matching every day and I just go ahead. After let's say 10 days, I see custody has removed the accrual, but my side I'm still holding it. Why? Then as a fund accountant, you need to go and check in the external vendor, third party sources, whether the dividend is still active or not. Sometime it so happen company will declare a dividend, but later due to some reason, whatever it is, they cancel the dividend. Custody got the information, they also removed it from the receivable bucket. You are also supposed to remove it from the receivable bucket, and that time only. What is going to happen if you don't do so? You will be holding it, that dividend, you didn't saw that income rec, you didn't check it correctly, so custody has removed it, you are still holding the income rec. After some day it will move out from income rec, so you don't have a break in income rec, and it will move into the cash, then you will get it a cash break. You see that there is a cash which is on your side, which is not there in the custody side, and you, let's say you commented it dividend to be posted by custody, and you keep this for a very long time. So that is going to be an issue into your fund. So always check it. That's why we have so many reconciliations in place, so that we can check that why the issue happened, where it is happening. So all these steps, it is very important, and it is very important from a fund accountant point of view also, to do all the steps diligently. So these are the common reconciliations which we see. Definitely there are some other kind of reconciliations also which some of the teams implement in particular in their funds. Like I know there are teams who will be doing this withholding tax and dividend reconciliation very diligently if it is very important. And the reclaim reconciliation, many a time do reclaim reconciliation is where you are expecting the reclaim from your dividend. I will be doing a separate video on the reclaims and dividend reclaim and withholding taxes. So those future settled reclaims also can be done a reconciliation, so that you are not over accounting your receivable bucket. Also there can be a reconciliation on your unrealized unsettled currency contracts. Those can also be very important, and these can also help to make the funds more clean and more streamlined. So this is all about reconciliation. Hope this video helped you, and thank you very much. Keep watching.